send human beings back to the moon. We want to send human beings to Mars. What if that's not what they did? What if the ancient aliens didn't send complete life forms, but sent submicroscopic life forms?
Mainstream scientists remain skeptical that microbes can survive for thousands of years inside icy comets, much less that they might be sent to Earth deliberately to alter human evolution. But others argue that the proof can be found right here on Earth, in the closest environment we have to comets, the icy depths of glaciers. Whistler, Canada, April 17th, 2019. Ancient astronaut theorist Giorgio Tsoukalos and retired NASA scientist Dr. Richard Hoover are about to board a helicopter bound for a massive ice cave in the Canadian wilderness.
All right, you ready for this? Yes, absolutely. All right.
Dr. Hoover spent most of his career studying fossils for signs of extraterrestrial microscopic life and is a leading proponent of panspermia, the idea that life on Earth originally rained down from comets in outer space. He has invited Giorgio to accompany him while he investigates the Whistler Ice Cave.
I always love this.
Where he is confident they will find the glacial ice teeming with microbial and perhaps even more sophisticated life forms. Life forms that may be thousands of years old.
Oh, this is just absolutely magnificent. It really is.
If alien viruses are reaching Earth, Dr. Hoover suggests that those that don't find a host could survive within such an environment for long periods of time. Today, he'll examine the glacier for the perfect samples to analyze in his laboratory.
So, Richard, how excited are you to be here to conduct this experiment? Well, I'm tremendously excited. This is absolutely a marvelous opportunity to do more studies of life in ice.
After a 20-minute helicopter ride, the team arrives at the Whistler Ice Cave in the Pemberton Glacier.
Wow, it's incredible. Amazing. Look at that. There must be 1,000 shades of blue in this ice cave. It's absolutely fantastic. And here we see all of these magnificent shades of blue, and up there you see big streaks of black. Glaciers like to eat rocks, and as they eat rocks, the rocks gather inside, and when the sun shines through the ice and hits the rocks, it can cause it to melt and form nice little pools of water, and then when bacteria and algae grow in there and respire and produce their photosynthetic products, they make their own atmosphere. So around every tiny rock in this glacier, there is a tiny planetary system with its own biology, its own atmosphere, its own soil, in fact, and its own oceans.
The ice here is tens of thousands of years old, but Dr. Hoover believes it is teeming with life.
Wow, I mean, this is spectacular. So you just described basically our environment on a microscopic level.
Exactly. There's an enormous amount of biology above us and throughout this wonderful glacier. What we are about to do is take a core sample of this beautiful blue ice.
So what are you looking for specifically right now?
What I want to do first is chop away an outer layer and get into the inner ice. We'll be looking inside of the ice for the ice microorganisms. Now we know there can't possibly be any contamination because this ice has been in the glacier and now is only freshly exposed. And now we take the core. Now we're into the ice. Pull the ice core out. Okay.
That's enough, right?
That's enough, yeah,
Okay,
for
great.
that first sample. Yeah, cap that.
Okay.
All the microorganisms that grow in ice typically grow very, very slowly. So, in fact, there are some microorganisms that only reproduce once every half a century or once a century.
So the microbes that are found in here, are they in suspended animation or are they moving around?
Probably both.
So essentially what you're saying is that this entire cave is filled with life.
Yes, but not just that. This entire ice cap is filled with life. There is this enormous amount of microorganisms that live and thrive and love to live in these low temperatures of the ice cave that we have here, and ice caves and icy glaciers all over the planet Earth, and probably all over icy regions within our entire solar system, and maybe widely distributed throughout the entire universe.
Are we essentially inside the interior of a comet? Is this what it looks like?
Yes. Microorganisms can live in ice, and ice is the dominant component of comets. Organisms can remain alive and protected by the icy material of the comet until it arrives into another solar system and blows off chunks of material that can find a planet that it can consider a wonderful home.
And so this basically ties into the whole idea of panspermia.
Water is a wonderful radiation shield, and when you have a comet that is a few miles in diameter, on the inside of that cometary crust there is all of this magnificent ice that has been frozen and then reworked with material going in and out. So comets are not just a magnificent place for panspermia. I am convinced that comets are an absolutely wonderful place for the origin of life.
Incredibly, Giorgio and Dr. Hoover discovered that the glacier isn't home to just microscopic life.
This is magnificent. Look, these ice worms. This one has just crawled out of the glacier. Wow. He's deep in the ice. Look at this. Over here, two more ice worms. They're all in here compared to the ice
clearly
worms.
looking for something.
Yeah, he's hunting.
We discovered life in the most inhospitable of environments.
Amazingly, Dr. Hoover has found some of the rarest animals on Earth. Ice worms only exist in a handful of locations in North America. But how can animals live and thrive in frozen blocks of ice?
So how do these ice worms come about?
This is an incredible evolutionary phenomenon. They have apparently evolved to be able to live and grow and feed and reproduce inside of glacial ice and snow. They are feeding on algae, cyanobacteria, and other bacteria that live in the ice, and they can make burrows through the ice, just like an earthworm makes burrows through the soil. And we may see similar kinds of organisms on the polar cap of Mars, or perhaps even in craters of the moon, or perhaps the icy moons of our solar system like Europa and Enceladus.
You know, it's kind of incredible because we came here in the hopes of finding microbial life, and here we are looking at ice worms, which are actual animals. So this is more than what we'd hoped for.
It's incredible.
As Giorgio and Dr. Hoover take their samples to a lab to be analyzed, what kind of life forms might they find within the Pemberton Glacier? Could it support the theory that life on comets is more common than we ever thought possible? And if so, is it just a random byproduct of a universe that is teeming with various forms of life? Or is it part of a more strategic plan? A plan deliberately designed to alter human evolution? Ancient astronaut theorist Giorgio and retired NASA scientist Dr. Richard Hoover have just collected deep ice core samples from the Pemberton Glacier in Whistler, Canada.
First sample that we got.
Now back in the lab, they are hoping to observe microorganisms that remain dormant within the glacial ice and are just now returning to life for the first time in thousands of years.
See anything?
Oh, yes, we've got bacteria.
This is fantastic. I mean, look at this one spinning right here. Yeah, this one just moves straight across the screen.
And this one is tumbling. And notice there's a cell that has just undergone cell division. Here's another one that's just undergone cell division.
Okay. The quest for extraterrestrial life, to me, has been a lifelong one, as it has been with you. So I've traveled around the world climbing pyramids, I've looked at statues, I've been to hundreds of museums, I've read countless ancient texts, and here we are looking at something that shows extraterrestrial life that may have come here millions of years ago.
The fascinating thing is that a far more extraordinary hypothesis than the existence of extraterrestrial life is the hypothesis that life exists on the planet Earth and nowhere else in the universe. If that were to turn out to be what really is the case, then we would be completely unique and we would be different from everywhere else in the universe, and that would be an amazing discovery, much more amazing than finding out that bacteria or ice worms are crawling around on the surface of Europa today.
And this is incredibly fascinating, and it's also refreshing to hear an actual NASA scientist telling me these things.
If, as Dr. Hoover's research indicates, icy comets are ideal incubators for extraterrestrial life, and if microorganisms are incredibly common in the universe, is the Earth being regularly bombarded by tiny alien life forms? Life forms that could not only grow and mutate, but could also pose a deadly threat to mankind. Sussex, England, 1992. Cattle are slaughtered by the thousands as government officials try to prevent the spread of the most frightening new disease on Earth. Called mad cow disease, it is an entirely new kind of illness caused by bizarre proteins called prions.
So mad cow really sort of challenged our traditional concepts of disease causation, in the sense that it wasn't a bacterium, it wasn't a virus, it's actually sort of like rogue proteins that don't fold correctly and sort of pass on that information to other proteins, and that sort of makes them dysfunctional as well.
Some of the microbes found in cometary debris contain chemical structures very similar to prions.
They could have been introduced from space because of the fact that mad cow disease seemed to have appeared rather abruptly, and